Today I'm going to tell you about my three favorite stoves I use. I use a butane burner, a twig stove, and an alcohol stove. This is what I use year round. Maybe you'll find one you like. Okay, the first stove I'm going to tell you about is this one here. It's the Atiap Titanium Twig Stove. I got this off of Amazon for $27.99. It weighs 3.68 ounces, so it weighs pretty much nothing. This is probably my favorite stove right now. This is the one I've been using the most, if you can't tell. Pros with this stove are the fuel is free. It's just a twig stove. You pick up twigs off the ground. Here in Missouri, we have lots of twigs, so I never have to buy fuel. You can use these year-round. You don't, like with pocket rockets and stuff, at a certain temperature, they'll start freezing up. But you can use these year-round. They work great. The other thing is when it's folded up and put away, the pack space is pretty minimal. It all goes into this one little bag here. So once you get it into the bag, it actually will sit in the bottom of my the net bag that I use for my pot, and it just sits underneath my pot right on top of it. So it takes up that much space, you know. So it's really nice. The cons are it takes a while to get water to boil with wood, so you have to wait a little bit. The other thing with that is that this stove is so small, you have to constantly keep feeding it. So I get a big bundle of twigs ready before I even start, and I just sit there. Generally, once I get it going, I will fill it up, and every couple of minutes you got to come back and refill it. The other problem with this is soot. I use, the little twigs, so there's a lot of soot that gets all over your pan. So every time I come back with it, basically I have to take a piece of steel wool to the bottom of the pan to get it all cleaned up. But like I said, though, for no fuel cost and at 3.68 ounces with no space taken up, this thing's pretty awesome. Okay, the next one. This is probably the second most used one I have, is the Coleman Peak 1 butane propane burner. This is different than what, if you order one, you'll see that they come wrapped. There's like a big red plastic casing around this, and there's a big thing on it. I stripped mine down just for weight, and it fits better inside. When you break this down, it should fit inside of your cooking pot. You have to turn the canister upside down, and then the stove will fit on the top with a lighter. But so if you take all the plastic off of it, will fit in your pot. The stove is the burner itself, which is this part here. This part here is $18.42, I think, right now on Amazon. The weight of the burner itself is like 6.7 ounces, so it's a little heavy. And then you have the weight of the canister too, and I'm sorry I don't know what a full canister weighs. This one's about half empty, so it's not that bad. The pros with this thing here is if you use one of these, wherever you go, there's a Walmart. So I see a lot of people carrying different types of burners that you have to use specific types of fuel for. But you can get these canisters at any Walmart. So basically, if you're within distance of a Walmart, you can get more fuel for your stove. The biggest thing about this is boil time. You crank this thing up, and in no time you have boiled water. The cons for this thing are if it gets too cold, it will freeze up, or it burns very slowly at best. So if it's below freezing, even if I've had trouble with it at about 35 degrees. Anything warmer than that, I got it to work. It doesn't work great the colder it gets, but if it gets below 35 degrees, it will freeze up and just quit working. The weight is a problem. If you like to count ounces, like I said, this is 6.7, and then you have the weight of the canister, also a full canister. The other thing I don't like about it is you can't see how much fuel you have in here. You have to weigh the canisters full. If you have a full one and an empty one, and then you can kind of keep track of where they're at. On some of my other canisters that are half full, I have them like I just write it on the bottom, you know, the weight and about the approximation if it's 1/4 or 1/2, and that's the way I handle that. But all in all, this is still a good stove. I've used it a lot. I've had it for years, and it still works great. So, if you like the Pocket Rocket style burners, something on a budget, this is a great one. Okay, last one is the alcohol stove, and I know a lot of backpackers love alcohol stoves, and I like them too. I use this one on and off. I really don't know. Can't say that I have a reason why. It's just sometimes I just want to do something different, so I take the alcohol stove. My alcohol stove is just a single can alcohol stove. It's just a bottom, then you have the top. I put 8 flutes around the outside, and it will fit. That way it will tuck inside of there. And then there is a breathing hole in the top. I know a lot of people that use the Fancy Feast alcohol stoves, and I actually have one of those too, and it's okay. The one thing I don't like about it is how small it is, and I'll talk about that even with this one here in the cons. But this stove right here by itself is 1/2 of an ounce, and it costs nothing. It was just a peace tea that I drank, and I made the stove out of it. And hopefully here in the future, I'll make a quick video and show you guys how to make these, because they're super easy. And you only need 1 can. You don't need 2 cans. You don't need anything but either a pair of scissors and a screwdriver, or I just use my multi-tool to make them. The pros is you can use this thing year-round. It doesn't matter how hot or cold it is, alcohol will burn. It's lightweight. You can carry as much alcohol or as little alcohol as you need. I find that it takes about 2 ounces of alcohol to make a meal for me, and even to boil water for coffee. So if you figure out how many ounces of alcohol you need for a trip, which I carry extra, I use like a 20-ounce bottle, and I have it marked out in 2-ounce increments, so I know, you know, and that's probably the heaviest part of this. And even this isn't that heavy. It's denatured alcohol is what I use. It burns really clean, so there's no soot or anything on the pans. The boil time is pretty quick with this. I don't think it's as quick as the Pocket Rocket style, but it is quicker than the Twigs. The cons with this thing is it is unstable. This is a larger can, and when we're talking about using the Fancy Feast cans, it's even smaller than that. And when you have 2 cups of water on a pot sitting on top of that, I have spilled these more than once. So basically, as you're boiling your water, and if it tips over, your alcohol runs out on the ground and sets whatever's near it on fire. So you do have to be careful with these things. You have to find a very stable place and make sure that you keep the pot on the top so it doesn't tip the can over. But again, I love this thing. I used it, I don't know, 4 or 5 times this last winter, and loved it. You know, I guess the one thing you could think when you want to use this is in the wintertime, if everything's covered in snow, because your twigs are going to be wet, your Pocket Rocket style one won't burn because it's too cold. That's where this thing comes in really handy. It can be pouring down rain, and you can still get something cooked on it. So that's my 3 stoves that I use. Hopefully you like it. Let me know what you think.